Coach, your team opened the indoor season this past Saturday at the Prairie Fire Invitational at Knox College in Illinois. Your general thoughts from that meet, despite not taking your full squad?
Well, it was a great start. There we go. It was a great start for us. We did bring just a partial squad to the meet, mostly just our sprinters, actually just part of our sprinters, all of our jumpers and all of our throwers. We're a young and inexperienced team this year, and it was really good to get them out a little early in a low pressure situation and let them see what it was all about.
Look, starting off on the men's side, you had 4 players that took first place finishes. You led by Brian Graper winning the 800-meter run and Brian Lechner winning 2 different events. Talk a little bit about the men's side.
Both Bryans were also on our winning 4x400 meter relay team. They're out to a great start for us this year. We have some pretty high expectations for Brian. I think he's capable of being a national qualifier in the long jump by the end of the year this year. Brian Graper also has the potential to be a national qualifier in the 800 meters.
My correction, on the men's side, you actually had 9 first place finishes overall, including individual and team events. You look at the women's side, the highlight of the day had to be Stephanie Atkinson tying a school record in the pole vault. Did you sense going into Saturday that she had a chance to tie the school record in her event?
She's been showing signs. This is actually pretty close to what her high school personal best was. She had a rough year last year with a lot of injuries. She's been very healthy this year. She looks great on the runway. She's just a couple of technical corrections away from being a foot higher in the pole vault, which would get her in the national meet. So we're real excited about her. She's bringing a great attitude to practice right now, and we're thrilled to see what she's going to be able to do here in the near future.
Kate Fulton, also a 2-time defending indoor All-American in the high jump, also won her event, not surprisingly, with a leap of over 1.6 meters. What does a strong start for her mean to you for a chance to have a three-peat as an All-American and hopefully win a national championship back to Fayette?
Well, the national championship might be a little bit of a stretch because there's a girl out there that's jumping close to 6 feet in the high jump. But she's out to a great start as well. This meet, we were jumping on a surface where we weren't able to wear track spikes for the high jumpers. They were the only ones in the meet that were kind of in that situation. So she was out there basically a pair of, it wasn't high tops, but basically a pair, somewhat equivalent to a pair of high tops, jumping in the high jump. Nisha McCoy was also in the same situation. They actually jumped the same height, and Nisha lost in the tiebreaker. But she looks great. Her approach is right where we were looking for it to be this year. She's really getting off the ground well, and we think that a national qualifying jump is probably just a weekend away here.
Because of the Eagles' hot start, Central Methodist on both the men's and women's side swept the opening HAC Weekly Awards for Track and Field Athletes of the Week. Looking at the men's side, Brian Graper and Dylan Simmons took the HAC Men's Indoor Track and Field Athletes of the Week, respectively. Talk a little bit about their performances from Saturday in Illinois.
Well, I'll start with Brian. Brian, if you had asked him, I would say he's probably a little bit disappointed with his race. He got out pretty well in the race, but kind of faded towards the end. But he wasn't even remotely pushed in the race. On the other hand, Dylan was tremendous improvements in both of his throws. Right now, as I see things, he is the conference leader in the shot put right now by a little over 6 inches, and he's second in the weight throw, which is, I'll say, tremendously ahead of where he was last year.
On the women's side, Caitlin Emig and Stephanie Atkinson were named the Women's Indoor Track and Field Athletes of the Week, respectively, in conference play. It was Caitlin's first collegiate meet. Did you expect her to get off to such a hot start?
Well, she's been looking very good in our practices. We weren't sure exactly what it would translate to on the track. We're really excited. Once we get outdoors to the outdoor track meets where she can run the 400-meter hurdles, that's where we really expect her to excel. But to see her get out of the gate and run her first 60-meter race in her life, as I understand it, and run well, that was really exciting for us.
And looking back at Stephanie's, I know we just recently talked about that, but again, I'm sure that you had to be very pleased as she posted the best performance in her young career.
Absolutely. She's working really hard, and like I said, well, for me, I'll describe it like this. She's in a seated position going over the bar right now, and ideally you want to be facing down at the ground with your feet going over that way. And once we get her turned around, and she'll clear it, like I said, at least another foot higher. That would put her a foot over our school record. That would put her in the automatic qualifying category for the national meet. And if she can repeat a vault like that at the national meet, she has a good chance of being All-American.
This coming Saturday, your squad on both the men's and women's side is going to participate in the Snowbird Open. It's going to be the first time this season that you would take your entire squad to a meet. What are you saying to them throughout this week of practice in order to prepare them for Saturday?
Well, last week we mainly talked about getting the work in. It was kind of a practice in a competitive situation. This week, this is a scored meet. We want to go in and show ourselves well. In fact, I'll share a little bit of a conversation I was having with Kiefer Smith, our pole vaulter, just yesterday. He asked me, Coach, why'd you say that there's more pressure on me this week? Well, I said, yeah. Well, we are going to put a little bit more pressure on you. Now I care how high you vault because I want you to win. I want you to be shooting for that personal best, as opposed to, I had, for example, if I use the high jumpers and pole vaulters for an example, we were trying to get a lot of extra work in, so they get to choose what height they enter in at, and I made them all choose a lower height. This week, now we're more concerned about doing a normal performance. We want to get out there and, for our high jumpers, for example, a typical high jumper or pole vaulter, they're going to take maybe 4 or 5 vaults. So you keep that in mind. Okay, if we're going to take 4 vaults, what we want to do is make sure that we're at a high enough level to begin with, that we're not tired when we're trying to compete at those higher heights, qualifying heights, etc. And so we're thinking about that. Okay, well, what do we want to do? And we talked about with our high jumpers and pole vaulters this week. Okay, what height do you want to come in at? Now, of course, I have a little bit of control over that, but I want them thinking about what their goals are as well. And this week, as we make our meet lineup this week, we're not necessarily thinking about, okay, who do we have to put where to win the meet? We're thinking more about, what do we have to run these kids in to prepare for our conference meet? But we still want to go out and show ourselves well and score as many points as we can. And if that works out where we win the meet, that's really exciting for us.
Is it more important to you to win the meet on either side for either your teams, or to get national qualifying marks? As I know that the most important meets are at the end of the indoor season with the conference and the national championships.
With us, that's kind of where it separates us from the footballs and the basketballs and baseballs. Going out this weekend and winning the meet, while it might be fun, is not necessarily the most important goal. The bigger goal for us is to go out and take that next step towards being great at the conference meet, and for those higher level kids, great at the national meet. So we're still kind of following that idea of practice in a competitive situation, but now we want to see performance as well. Now we're putting a little bit more pressure on it.
Well, Lucas Mannering was a dominant performer for you last year. He's no longer on the squad due to completing his eligibility last year. Who are some of the people that Central Methodist should expect to see perform great, especially in the indoor season, and perhaps as soon as this Saturday?
Well, some of those people that we'll see, Derek Freeman is one name that you probably haven't heard since his freshman year. Last year he sat out in the red shirt because of an injury. He's a guy that you can really look for during the indoor season, the 60-meter dash. He's tremendous. Person who hasn't stepped out on the track yet for us this year, Kerry Nolan, was a high point scorer at the conference meet last year. And we're really excited to see what he can do this year. We think he's a potential national qualifier in the 400 meters and possibly the 200 meters indoors. On top of that, we've mentioned Brian Lechner already and Dylan Simmons, who are already off to great starts in their respective events. Kiefer Smith, who's the defending champion and school record holder in the pole vault. The list goes on and on. We had brought in a great freshman class this year on our guys' side, and I'm not going to say any names yet. Those guys have to earn their spot on the radio, so to speak. But we're close. I don't know if we're going to be conference champions this year. There's a lot of competition that has to take place, but we're close. We were 16 points away from winning the conference championship last year. That was with a distance squad that wasn't tremendously strong. We're amazingly improved in the distance races this year, both on the individual level and in the depth of our squad. So I'm really curious to see what's going to happen over these next few weeks and find out how we measure up against Baker.